Hi everyone, Christian here, and I'm going to break down Filipino movies across all genres. I created this series to people who just wants to know the story and don't have time to watch the whole movie. But I really want you to watch the movie first before proceeding with this breakdown, because this video contains a whole lot of spoilers. So, in this list, I based it on a web article of Fiction File of their 21 best films of all time from Philippine cinema. I give all the credits to them for making this list, so if you want to check their website, there is a link in the description. This movie is directed by Mike De Leon. It examines the heroism of Philippine national hero Jose Rizal, particularly on his supposed retraction of his writings against the Catholic Church in the Philippines during the Spanish colonization period in the country. This movie is a mix of interview of their own opinion and real facts written in our recorded history. So, if you want to know all the main point of every scene and why this is one of the best films in the Philippines of all time, well, let's go ahead and break down Bayaning Third World, or Third World Hero. The movie starts where we see a bunch of national things from the Philippines. It feels like I'm back to kindergarten. Then, we finally see the national hero Jose Rizal. Then, title screen. The narrator starts talking about the whole movie is all about Jose Rizal. They say that it's a sin to doubt the heroism of Rizal. Then, making this movie is also a sin for them. Then, we see these two dudes who I guess the filmmakers were just going to call them by their real name, Ricky Davao and Cris Villanueva. They are mocking Jose Rizal for making a movie about him. Then, the next scene shows who and what is Rizal. Ricky, as filmmaker number 1, is saying who is Rizal and that we see him in our society, in our money, and that we live with him before we're born until we die. You know, it's funny because Jose Rizal even became a saint. Then, the next scene, we see Cris as filmmaker number 2, talking about Jose Rizal that after his death, he became a blockbuster to the foreign countries by making a movie about him. But they only include some of his memorable scenes, like his relationship to Josephine and his execution. Then, we see both of them talking about that after his execution, different countries took over the Philippines, from Americans, Japanese, and then Americans again. But in the end, the Filipinos ruled the Philippines because of his influence and his writings. Then, after that, here we see Ricky talking about the controversial letter of Rizal, the letter of his retraction. In this letter, he wrote that he regret everything that he have done and surrendered his life to the Catholic Church. But Ricky doesn't want to believe it because the signature of Rizal agreeing from that letter is somewhat doubting him from believing because nobody can copy his signature. I mean, anybody can copy his signature. Sorry, my bad. Then, the next scene, we see a bunch of people praying because they made Jose Rizal as their god and made a religion about him. Then Ricky here says that if Rizal saw everything what was happening then he will not risk his life for the Filipino nation. We can see from his smile. That smile. Then, the next scene shows that the life of Rizal. Was it like a movie? Well, let's find out. We see Ricky and Cris revising the script and also thinking of changing the title of the movie. They were also making fun of him being a brand for a deodorant. Going back to the movie, Ricky gets a call but none answered, and then we see some horror movie scene here. What's going on? We see him hearing stuff and realize that Rizal was relaxed before his execution. But you know, Cris jokes about that he looks like Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, very funny, Cris. Then, Ricky finally knows what the movie is going to be all about. It is going to be the investigation before his death. But after that, Ricky doubted again of what really happened before the day of his execution. Then, we see Rizal writing some letter to Ferdinand Blumentritt. Blumentritt became one of Rizal's closest companion, although they met only once. If you want to know more about the people that are mentioned here but don't have any idea who they was, I will be putting links about them in the description. So, okay, back again to the movie. Rizal wrote him a letter about people using their religion to take advantage of different things in life. Then, we see Ricky and Cris talking about the retraction controversy about Rizal, and they think that behind that controversy was Josephine Bracken, or Jose Rizal's wife. She's a British-Irish who was born in Hong Kong, and that they were doubting her about their marriage. Ricky talking about some story about the day after Rizal's execution. Everyone knows of it, but not Rizal. Then this scene where he imagines Rizal before his execution. Rizal, was really worried that time. The next scene is remembering Donia Lolay, or the mother of Rizal, Donia Chudora. We see Ricky imagining things from Lolay and Trining. Trining was the sister of Rizal. They were talking about their freedom. Lolay tells Ricky that if he leaves that day, it was a crime to have freedom and that he should just go back to his time. And then we see Rizal writing his letter to his family, telling and comparing what was happening in Paris to the Philippines that time. But Lolay telling Ricky that because of his wisdom, it blinded him that he was a Christian and that while Rizal was growing, he only believes in what he knows. Then it all ends asking her if Rizal wants to marry Josephine Bracken. But Lolay didn't answer. So she stopped answering all the way. I guess she's annoyed about that question. Well, who am I kidding? They were just his imagination. It feels like talking to yourself and interviewing yourself. Okay, then Ricky and Cris talking about Donia Chudora or Lolay. Cris is mocking Chudora again that the actress is far from the looks of Chudora and start making fun of her. Then, the next scene is where we see Pasano to tell about Rizal and his fate. He is talking with some dude. Cris thinks that this dude is Emilio Aguinaldo. They were talking about Rizal on how they would fight right after that. Cris and Pasano starts talking to each other about Rizal and their meeting in Hong Kong. After that, we see Rizal writing his letter, but it was to be opened after his death, telling that he won't make it past 30 years old. But Pasano just laughs at his letter because Rizal was still alive after he was 30. And he was still alive in 31. He was sent right back from Hong Kong and sent him to the Pitan. And that Rizal must die inside the church, just like a true Christian. Then, Pasano says that Rizal did a lot of things in the Pitan. Then after that, Rizal also meet Josephine in the Pitan. Then Cris asks Pasano if what happened to Bracken after Rizal's execution and asks if she was married by Rizal. But, Pasano just says no. And that's it for Pasano, the brother of Jose Rizal. And then we go to Josephine Bracken, asking if she was an inspiration to Rizal or just a distraction. We see Ricky talking to Josephine, asking questions to her about Rizal, her relationship to Rizal's family, and about their marriage. But she says that Rizal doesn't want to be a Catholic just to be married, and that he disagreed from what the two priests was trying to tell him. So, he walks away from the two priests, Padre Oba and Padre Balaguer. But Josephine was really not sure of what really happened. Padre Balaguer is an important character. We will get into him later, okay? Then the next scene, we see here saying that if the documents is fake or not. Ricky and Cris arguing about the document, that it can be easily manipulated by anybody, and Ricky is getting angry because of the document, whether it's genuine or fake. He likes to doubt to everything, I guess. Then the next scene is for Narcissa, one of Rizal's sister. Cris is asking Narcissa about Rizal, that he was only a victim of Josephine Bracken, and that their relationship was a scandal for everybody, and that Narcissa thinks that Rizal was changing, not only for himself, but also for everybody. Then we see Don Pio and Jose Rizal talking about the Himagsikan, and that Rizal was, he opposed on what the Himagsikan was trying to do that time. And you know what? They just blame Rizal for the Himagsikan. So he was a victim that time. The next scene is for Trining or Trinidad, who also the sister of Rizal. So Ricky and Cris again doubting about the retraction letter of Rizal from Padre Balaguer. Oh yes, later we will know why Padre Balaguer has that letter of Rizal. Okay, back to the movie. So they tried to find the interview of Trining, one of Rizal's sister, that the documents were misplaced from them, but was still found by the Spaniards. The Spaniards find all the retraction letter from different hero, including from Rizal. But Cris doesn't agree because Trining has a different interview where he found out that there is no retraction letter from Rizal. But she doesn't remember where she says that Rizal doesn't have a retraction letter because, she was old that time and making confusion from the both of them. But after the death of Rizal, Trining became old and all the remembrance of Rizal was taken from her. She also asked a spiritual expert to talk to Rizal, just like some crazy woman. Then, the next scene, we see both Ricky and Cris arguing and saying that the main reason of the retraction was the Jesuits. And Ricky thinks that all the writings of Rizal was written for nothing and asking why would they even make a movie of Rizal? For Rizal turning his back to his nation. And finally, they know what should be the title of their movie is. Well, they name it Bayaning Third World or Third Class Hero, Cris said. Then here, we see that they tried to reenact Jose Rizal's execution, thinking if he died as a Catholic or not. After that, the next scene is about Padre Balaguer. Yes, finally, to tell Rizal was redeeming himself to the Catholic Church before he died, or before his execution. Rizal also asked for his sculpture of Sacred Jesus, yes, the one he made when he was young. And, they just handed it to him because they were happy. Then we see Cris telling Ricky that only Padre Balaguer has all the information to Rizal before his execution. But Padre Balaguer still struggles to convince Rizal to redeem himself to the Catholic Church. He also says that Rizal cried to him. He also says that the family of Rizal was there before his execution, and that Rizal surrendered his life to the Catholic Church. That's why he writes the letter of retraction. And then he confessed to the priest, and after just an hour after he wakes up, again, he asks for a confession. And then he reads the letter out loud to them. Then after that, he again asks for a confession. Then after the confession, he wants to have a mass with Padre Balaguer. Then after that, Rizal was married to Josephine the morning before his execution. Then that's it for Padre Balaguer. I don't know if it's really true or not because it feels like not our Jose Rizal. He just surrendered like that before his execution. It feels fast. Then, the confrontation of the sisters of Rizal, along with Josephine, they were arguing if Rizal really married to Josephine, but none of them really believes her. Because, there are no papers to prove it. Then after that, the next scene is about having a conversation with Rizal. They want to know the real truth, but the truth was already... The truth was already there for them to know, and that even if Rizal don't want to be the hero, he can no longer change that from the history, and we will just live with it till we die. And after that, now both of them are asking questions if they should continue the film. Well, Ricky said that it's still a possibility for them, and that his story should just, remain in the textbooks, because there are different stories of their own version of Rizal. And now, they are tired knowing what is the real truth of him. Then, the movie ends with a quote from Ricky saying that Rizal was really a coward. But based on what he written from his novels and what he achieved, we should never really doubt his heroism just because of it. Okay, hold it right there. You know, before watching this movie, I really didn't know what to expect, and I already know what Jose Rizal's story, but watching this movie adds something to it, that anybody can really make a story about Rizal. We can never really trust anyone except for Rizal. So, for me, the only way to know what Rizal's story is from his writings or novels. You can really feel him and what he wants to do to the Filipino nation. The part where he makes the letter of retraction is, I think, that he was only forced just to marry Bracken, and he was going to die that day anyway. And also, I think the story of Balaguer was there to make us believe that Rizal really surrendered right before his execution. So, anyway, yes, that's just me. I'm not a historic person, I just want to know what this movie was all about. I watched it twice and kinda learned new things from it. You know, it feels like an investigation rather than a real movie of Rizal. You know, breaking down historic movie is hard, but I try my best to break down for everyone out there. So, I guess that's it for the breakdown. See you guys again in the next one. Ingat!